Chapter 11. Roberto arrived shortly afterwards. I answered the door this time. He looked good enough to eat. I'm saved, not dead. Roberto was one fine specimen of manhood, something I tended to forget when he dressed in suits or dress shirts and slacks. Today, he had on a pair of faded black jeans that clung to bulging quads and a long-sleeved black tee molded to his muscular chest and biceps. I knew he was retired Navy. It was evident he still kept in shape. His salt and pepper hair may proclaim him to be in his early to mid-40s, but his body was of a much younger man. Briefly, I wondered why he was interested in me. There are a lot of nicer-looking women with better shapes in our church who didn't have the emotional baggage I carried. Why not pursue one of them? Maybe one day I'd find the nerve to ask. I suddenly realized Roberto still stood in the doorway, and I hadn't spoken or moved to allow him in. Flushing with mortification at my behavior, I swung the door wide and got out the way. Sorry, I'm not used to seeing you in jeans. Good thing I wasn't the drooling type, or I'd be mopping up an embarrassing trail of spit. I surreptitiously wiped the corners of my mouth, just in case. Roberto grinned, and his eyes held a knowing look, like he knew exactly what I'd been thinking. He probably did. I'd been told on more than one occasion how expressive my face was. It broadcasted my every thought without my saying a word. Something smells good, Roberto said by way of greeting. Hot roast. Kids, Roberto's here, I called out as I led Roberto further into the house. We normally eat in front of the television, unless you want to eat here at the table. I thought we eat in the living room? Bree wants to watch a movie while we eat. I left the choice up to him. If he wanted to sit in the dining room, I'd eat there with him, but I wouldn't make the kids do so. TV's fine. It's what I do at home, Roberto agreed easily. If you want to wash your hands, you can use the kitchen sink, or the bathroom's through there. I pointed it out to him. As he headed down the hall to the main bathroom, I had a sudden thought. I hope the kids didn't leave a mess this morning. I had my own bathroom and didn't always check theirs. Oh well, if Roberto spent any time around us at all, he'd soon learn not to expect a perfect house. We were busy people, and cleaning often got done when we got to it. Although I was a stickler for not allowing the kids to leave their things all over the place. That's why they had bedrooms, for their belongings. Roberto didn't comment, so it must have been okay. Either that or he was too polite to say anything. I handed everyone a plate and put the crock pot where it was easily accessible. My mother would have been appalled. I could hear her in my mind. Fix that man a plate? Yes, the same woman who preached start out as you mean to continue. My mother was a walking, talking oxymoron. If this thing between Roberto and I did end in, I couldn't even think the M word, then I wasn't spending the next 20 or so years of my life serving him. I'd cooked. He could fix his own plate. We settled in the living room with our food. Bree was on the two-person ottoman, Brendan in the rocker recliner, leaving Roberto and I to sit on the couch. What are we watching? Roberto asked. Tyler Perry's Why Did I Get Married? The answer came from Brianna. Have you seen it before? I questioned Roberto. I've seen quite a few of his pieces, but not this one. Is it a play or a movie? The play, I answered for Bree, knowing she preferred the play, though we had both. In my opinion, it's better than the movie. Of course, that's because it's a lot funnier. We quieted as the film began. Since I'd seen it plenty of times, I spent more time observing Roberto's reactions than the screen. While the play is humorous, it deals with the serious issue of adultery, a topic close to my heart. Having been cheated on in several previous relationships, it was a sore spot with me. Why were men, black ones in particular, incapable of being faithful? Don't get me wrong. I'm sure there were men out there that knew how to keep it in their pants. None I'd met, but a minuscule few. I also knew infidelity wasn't a race issue or solely relegated to the male portion of the population. But since I don't swing the other way, it is the only portion I was concerned with. At the end of the play, they stopped several couples in the lobby and asked them why they got married. The people's answers varied. Some were amusing, others insightful. To me, what they should have asked is why they stayed together, especially the couples that proudly proclaimed how long they'd been married. All during the show, I'd felt like there was a magnetic field pulling Roberto and I together. It was hard to stay on my side of the couch, especially after I finished eating. He must have felt it too, because bit by bit, the distance between us decreased. However, I think most of it was me. As the credits rolled, Roberto turned to me and asked, "So, why did you get married?" By this time, the kids had disappeared to different corners of the house. "I was young and stupid," I said immediately, being flippant. He smiled as I'd intended, but his eyes remained serious. "Really? What motivated you?" I could see Roberto was really interested, so I thought back to that period in my life. My ex Tyrone talked a good game. I was already pregnant with the twins, and he'd kept on and on about how they should have 2 parents. I loved him, but wasn't convinced marriage was the best option. I didn't think he was ready for that type of commitment, and I didn't and still don't believe in divorce. I want it forever. I used to jokingly tell my friends when I got married, it would be till death do us part, even if I had to kill my husband to get out of it. He promised me that kind of commitment. It took him a little over a year, but he finally convinced me. Roberto placed an arm on the back of the couch and shifted so he faced me. "So, what happened?" I shrugged. Tyrone couldn't deliver. The responsibility was more than he could handle. He wanted to go out to clubs and hang out with his friends, which I had no problem with him doing occasionally. Then the drinking started. I caught him hiding his wedding ring when he went out. I'd find phone numbers in his pockets when I washed the clothes. Tyrone wanted me and our family, but his freedom too. Roberto considered my words as he studied my expression. "So, he was unfaithful. You said he drank. Did he ever hit you?" Both my eyebrows rose reflexively. "Hit me and live to tell the tale? I don't think so. As for cheating, not in the beginning. I don't think, but it wasn't long before there was someone else." Roberto frowned. "Then why did he get married?" My mouth twisted in a wry smile. That's the question, isn't it? I think part of it was pressure from his parents to do the right thing. The breaking point came when I discovered his lies. "About other women?" He leaned closer, totally focused on me. I shook my head. I could have handled that. I still would have divorced him. Adultery has always been a deal breaker in my book. But I don't think I would have been so devastated. Men cheat. It's a fact of life. "Some men cheat. Not all of us," Roberto corrected. I didn't want to argue, so I let his correction pass without challenging it. I found out he was lying, not just to me, but to everyone. "What happened?" By this time, we were living in Georgia, just over the state line. But Tyrone was still working in Florida. He had a pregnant supervisor living not too far from us. He sometimes offered a ride. One day, she called looking for Tyrone when he wasn't home. She's one of those friendly, talkative types, and we got to chatting. I mentioned how I'd been looking for a job, but not having any luck. The bills were piling up, and I was getting concerned. She said, "I thought you were a school teacher." I explained I was a substitute teacher, but recently hadn't been getting any calls. She asked why I hadn't come to the care center where she and Tyrone worked and applied. They needed people desperately. This was news to me. I'd specifically asked my husband if his job was hiring. I used to work there before Tyrone did and knew I'd have no problem getting rehired. He told me no. I sighed and rolled my shoulders to loosen the tension. I was no longer angry, but recounting the tale still did things to me. She asked me about Tyrone's job at the hospital. I explained he didn't work at the hospital. The only job he had was the care center. That's when it all came out. Tyrone had been telling everyone his wife was a teacher. His real job was at the hospital in Kingsland, and the care center was just a little part-time gig he had going. To maintain the lie, he turned down every opportunity available for overtime, which was daily. I looked Roberto in the eye. I was furious. We were struggling financially, barely holding things together. He could have easily worked 4 extra hours a day and made enough money in overtime to get us out of the hole we were in. But his image was more important than his family's welfare. Shaking his head in what appeared to be shared disgust, Roberto asked, "That's why you divorced him?" "Yeah. As the saying goes, I can do bad all by myself. I didn't need him dragging me down. I packed up the kids and moved home until I could get on my feet. That's how I ended up here." I was silent for a moment, still caught up in the memories. "Enough about me. Why did you get married?" "I was in love." He wagged his eyebrows, making me laugh. "Seriously, I was. Would do anything for her, believe every word that comes out of her mouth kind of love. I thought Peggy felt the same. I was wrong. I was just her meal ticket out of town." "What happened?" To my knowledge, Roberto never talked about his ex-wife. His sons, yes, but not her. This was the first time I'd heard her name. "Once, while in between tours, Justin became really ill and needed a blood transfusion. Mine was incompatible. That's when it all came out. She'd been having affairs, one after the other. While I was out on the ship turning down opportunities left and right, she was home living the life. I had all of the boys tested. Only Roberto Jr. and Enrico were mine. And Peg admitted that was sheer luck. It turned out that way. Even she hadn't been certain." Roberto made an expression like he had a bad taste in his mouth. I reached up and stroked the hand he dangled between us, ending with mine resting on his arm. "I don't understand people. Isn't it strange how good men always end up with bad women and vice versa? My coworkers and I were discussing this at work. The women who take good care of their children and are responsible with the child support often end up with deadbeats refusing to pay. Men who pay faithfully and do right by their kids end up with women who blow the money on everything but the child and are always demanding more." He smiled. "It does seem that way sometimes, doesn't it?" "Yes." Roberto moved my hand from his arm and held it in his. "So, if you had to do it all over again, would you?" "Marry Tyrone, you mean?" "Yes." I thought about it for a minute. "Probably. He wasn't the only one who made mistakes. Now would be a different story." "Makes sense. You're a different person now than you were then. Today, what would tempt you to say I do?" He seemed very intent on my answer. "I can't think of much," I slowly responded. A few years ago, when the kids were a lot younger, my answer would have been different. I wanted help. With the children, my finances, you name it, and I needed it. The twins are older now. I've learned how to trust God for what I need, and He hasn't let me down yet, so money is no longer an issue." "That's it? You don't have any desires or needs?" His expression held a mixture of shock and dismay. "Other than sex? No, but I wasn't going there with him. I'll tell you like I told Pastor. I know a lot of single women pray for husbands, but I'm not one of them. I'm content with my life. I have peace. If I want to go into my room and not be bothered, I can. If I don't feel like cooking or cleaning, I don't have to. I go where I want, when I want, and answer to no one. All that would change if I were married. There would be one more person in my life whose feelings I'd have to take into consideration. If my husband and I had a fight, I couldn't go into my room and get away from him, because my room would be our room, Right now, I don't see any benefit to being married. If I didn't before, I now had Roberto's complete and undivided attention. What about love, companionship, sex? You don't want any of those things?